All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Corrections Code Enforcement Committee here on May 25th, 2023. Present are Councilman Hockett and Councilman Brad Schramm, Joe Hockett and Brad Schramm. Quite the lineup today. We have City Attorney Paul Jensen, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, Public Safety Commissioner Justin Day, Jail Administrator Lori Kalenda, Assistant Administrator Jeff Augsburger, and Code Enforcement Officer Chelsea Lewis. We are going to take a look today, a couple different agendas. First, we'll look at code enforcement to start the meeting with Chelsea. Then we'll move on to corrections. Chelsea, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just start with my code enforcement update. Obviously, we finally have all the snow off the ground. So, have started all of the summertime, I would say, code enforcement checks. I've probably sent out 60 letters or so far. Have covered all 4 quadrants at this point. How I'm kind of handling it, didn't have a whole lot of direction on how Cody did it. So what I'm doing is Monday, Tuesday, I do a full quadrant inspection that includes all of the junk vehicles, broken items, that sort of deal, on 2 quadrants. So I do 1 quadrant Monday, 2nd quadrant Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm in my office all day just for people to come in and meet with me. And then Thursday, Friday, the quadrants that I did full inspection on the week before, I'm going back and doing all the grass checks. So that Monday and Tuesday includes grass checks as well. It just includes the bigger stuff too. But then we've got that 7 days for the mowing. So then Thursday, Friday, I'm going back and checking mowing and seeing what's been abated and what hasn't. I did order an iPad to hopefully streamline a little bit the process, so I'm not writing down in a notebook, coming back, making sure I have the right property, taking photos off my phone, emailing them to myself, trying to make this just a little bit easier and a little quicker for me. So Justin, I do actually need to grab a credit card from you just to set up that iPad. Okay. But that's how that's going. Anybody got any questions about stuff going on there?
The one thing that I heard about a lot last year, if we all remember, is we have a lot of city properties. How are you handling those when they need to get to the appropriate departments?
I sat down with Troy and we had a little bit of a discussion on how that should be handled.
Should flow.
And any phone calls that I get about that, which yes, that is my department, but I am forwarding those to Troy, so he can give his explanation to whoever has issues with city lots. He's going to be getting a list as far as spots that need mowed from me that haven't met their 7-day time period deal, and it will include city lots as needed, but they will not be getting letters and citations from my department.
Understand. I think the public needs to hear how we're handling that. So,
Have they mowed the lot up on Lavrel? That was getting pretty tall, but
I drove by it on the way here.
is it mowed yet?
I was going to say, not as of yesterday.
It's getting pretty tall up there, and we're gonna get complaints on that.
I think we already
We
have.
might already have.
They may have made a comment on our Facebook page. That was before
I
we learned how to shut comments off.
I see.
Yep.
Chelsea gave us, asked the office to post her annual spring maintenance. We used to send it out via postcards. That got to be fairly expensive, so now we just post it online.
Yeah,
We posted that and immediately, within 5 minutes,
yeah,
that lot was, a picture of that was posted.
right.
I'm not making any comments about lots that aren't mowed, 'cause I have a hard time.
Yeah, careful.
We also advertise that in the paper, do we not?
We do.
I don't know that we still do.
I
We should if we
I
don't.
We should if we
Okay.
don't, yeah. I remember last year we did, I just wasn't sure if we did
The
or
full
not.
20% of the population gets the paper. You know, so. Is it that high?
I don't know,
I don't know.
but I do know some people will still get it from
Yeah,
there.
yep.
So did she send you the copy that had the updated prices?
Yep.
Okay.
The more we can tell them, the more likely we are that they'll
Yep.
keep it up to date, or keep it up to snuff, you know.
All right.
Okay, and I'll just move on to my comprehensive plan update. After pushing our guy a little bit, I finally got the comprehensive plan update that he did back in December, I believe. It's been a couple years coming, I guess. There are just a couple things that need to be updated, that were listed in the notes that Cody had, on what needed to be changed that didn't get changed, so I need to talk with him about whether or not Cody called him and said, no, we don't need to change this, or what the reasoning is on why a few of those things weren't changed. But that will be getting passed to my planning and zoning committee at the next meeting for them to go over again. I'm gonna send it out early because it's long. But, we'll discuss that at our next meeting. And hopefully we will get that passed on to city council with our approval at this point, so.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea. Corrections? Lori, the floor is yours, ma'am.
She must not have heard you. No.
Good morning. Today we have 143 in jail. For the month, we have 153. For the year, we're averaging 160. Hires, we've done quite a few interviews the last week and this week also. We've offered to Kevin Carter, Tyrell Andrews, Brianna Larson, Tate Marine, Shield, and Crystal Kemp. Right now, we're awaiting the final backgrounds on them. The one that has given us a start date is Crystal Kemp, and she'll start the end of June. We're awaiting the background checks on the rest of them. Jace Robertson, he started, went from intern, part-time to full-time, and he started last week. So that's just kind of a way of one of our internships turning into a part-time and then going full-time after graduation. Kyle Grimm, he started this Monday, and he went full-time also for us. Trinity Food Group was here yesterday for their initial visit. We walked around the building, kind of went over their storage space, how to come in the alley, how to exit the alley, what's the best way to get in there to deliver their food. When we went over where we can unload and how to get it in the building, they'll be back next week, but now they kind of have an idea of what our storage is and where they need to put stuff. They'll kind of come in and adjust how they want their freezers and refrigerators set up, but there's no sense of us trying to help them in that until they kind of tell us what they need, what they want in one building to the other building. So once they get there, we'll try to help them as much as we can with what their needs are when they arrive. They'll take over the supper meal on June 8th. So they'll come into the kitchen about 1 o'clock that day. And met the regional supervisor and then the direct supervisor to us yesterday. And then the ones before for hire, it'll be at current rate, what we started at $19.65. Starting wage discussion, I guess it's back to you guys what you have questions on. We've been here, this is I think our third time presenting this to you, so we can discuss whatever questions you guys have, or, as you noticed, we went out and recruited pretty heavily. We've had some interviews, had some filled positions. Right now, we have, we've offered, if we go to the 33.5 with the wage discussion that we have, we've offered 5 and we still have 1 opening. And if we stay at the current where we're at right now, it's 35 and we have 8 openings, then an offered 5.
Council?
I didn't even think about bringing my wage scale that we had.
Lori, do you have yours?
Uh,
There's one right in front of you, right there, Brad.
Oh, did you have that? Did I have this?
No, it was just sitting there from
Just been
before,
sitting
but
there.
that's,
Thank you, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, and I probably didn't really need this. So if I understand, we're like the 3rd largest jail in the state,
Correct.
but we're 7th in pay or something like that, or 6th or 5th?
12.
12.
12th, okay. So if our answer is that we need to have higher pay in order to get more employees, the problem I run into is, can we afford the higher pay? And I wonder, I went home thinking that because of our budgeting cycle, I mean, it looks to me like you've hired 8 people on this list. Weren't we 10 short or something like that?
Yes, coming into the last meeting.
Yep, yeah, and so these people took the job at the lesser of pay, and I don't know why they would have done that, other than, is that part of the cycle? But I would like to see us, and it's more of a wish list than anything, there's no doubt that our starting pay isn't up to snuff. The question is, how do we pay the starting people, start them out at a better salary so that we are more competitive with the other entities that are doing the same thing we are, without breaking our bones on the existing people, but yet we still need to keep the existing people. And last time, if I remember right, we talked about raise everybody $1.50. But I just don't know that we're gonna be able to do that. I think we're gonna need to do a graduated type of scale where the people that are already making more than our new starting pay, maybe they get a quarter, or maybe they get 40 cents, something to appease them until the next budget cycle, when then you guys can come to us and say, here's what we want to pay for the calendar year, or
That's
fiscal
what
year,
we
whatever.
put before you last council meeting,
That's what they
was
had.
that option.
If you look at option 1, that's the one that is in our budgetary wise,
Yep,
and.
do you have a copy of that?
It's in front of them right there. I just
Okay.
walked it over.
Can I get a copy of it?
oh, so not these, okay. You have it, Joe?
Yeah,
Are we sharing
I've got it
this?
in my mind,
That's
I
the
know
one
the
that fits in
concepts
our
here,
budget.
and that option number 1, I supported that because it addressed
But
almost
this gave
every
everybody a
concern.
raise right now, right?
Option 1
Option 1,
enhanced the bottom, pretty good.
yep,
I believe it
And
was
those
a
up
dollar.
above got what, a quarter, is that what I seen? Something like, at 20, it was something so that they were appeased a little bit. It was something, but it wasn't that dollar.
It kept the
It
integrity
kept things,
of the pay scale.
yeah,
yes.
it kept things in line for my way of thinking, what we need to do. I support the incoming salary 100%. I think we need to stay competitive. I know how the working world works. We need to stay competitive. I was on a school board 20-some years. You've got to stay competitive with the field. We're not right now. We're the 3rd largest. We're down 12, 13, 14 down. I believe wholeheartedly that we need to enhance the pay for the incoming. That's where I'm at, and that option number one appeared to me like it answered all those questions.
Because
So,
I
I mean,
believe,
I support that option one, I still do. I think we can do it within the budget. It's not gonna have budgetary implications much, and I think we can do it, it might help us. But the recruitment has got to be strong, and I see that we're doing that. It's gotta be a 2 or 3 prong approach on maintaining the staff that we need to operate our jail. We need that. You guys are actively going out in the recruitment process, and that's excellent. I always felt that's what we need to do. We need to sell ourselves, what we got here. We've got an option for kids. Their dads don't have a farm, their dads don't have a business. They love Winter area. They can stay here and they can work and they can make a living and make good money and have health insurance for their kids. They can get married and raise their family right here in Winter without their dad having a big farm or a business. That's what I like.
It's an
Well,
industry.
That's where I'm at.
And Brad, for that option one, these figures were all presented to the finance office, and they ran all those figures for us, and it was within budgetary.
And that, so I just want to explain too, when we ran that, we ran it as if they'd been full staffed all year too. So understand that they have been down, so that, what you have in front of you is if they're full staffed all year long. So it's even gonna affect less.
Yeah.
Because they've been down.
just 2 meetings ago, Brad, the initial conversation was that $150 across the board.
Yep.
Then it got tabled, we came back and talked about it, we identified 2 of the main issues. One was starting wage, 2 was retention,
Starting wage for
starting incoming.
line
Brand new
officers.
line.
Coming in, and the secondary issue that was discussed was the retention of our current employees. So that is why Lori put together option one, which we truly felt kind of solved each of those issues, and it was a gradual stair step going up. The bulk of the redistribution of budgetary funding was given to the initial, and then it was looked at and going up. That's where Lori came up with her figures. So that's what you have in front of you. That option one was kind of what we took out of the last meeting that council wanted to see. That's what was put together.
And the
And
reason the
I will just tell you that I spent some time in the finance office, more observing than anything, as the process was done, with Chandra and Lori working together, running numbers. Rhonda was involved in double checking those numbers, and Chandra came back and double checked them again. And that was following the option that Lori put forward that you see here as option number one. I just wanted to make sure that, from my standpoint, that what we were getting was an accurate reflection, budget-wise, of what the different options were going to present to you. And I'm absolutely convinced that, having watched the process go through, they double and triple checked everything.
And the one thing is, we made sure that the newer employees, and the ones that have been there 5 years or less, no one was making more, with starting out than what. And then at the end of March, in our personal services, we had $50,277 that we hadn't used because of being down-staffed. And that was the end of March, and I haven't got a new figure since then.
Right, we were talking about we still were talking about a policy that I think needs to be addressed, not just for corrections, but across the city of Winter, where when you have $50,000 that were appropriated that won't be used because of lack or unfilled positions, and it becomes, we talked about defining an emergent situation, taking those funds and putting it into a sign-on bonus also, or moving bonus to get somebody here if we're out recruiting in VOTEX. I also would just going to interject this right now at this point in this meeting. We are in a changing world. You guys have been out in front talking to these kids at their high school employment days, job fair days. You're seeing a lot of different cities now that will actually sign somebody before they go to school and pay part of their schooling to go to school in return for them coming back to that community. People have gotten creative. If we don't explore this as a council, looking at students, identifying them, they're going into this career field, do we invest in them, part of their education in exchange for their coming back for so many years of service?
Well, we sure did it with doctors
Yes, we have.
and with dentists.
Yes, we have.
And
But I don't. think
other than
you-
the last 5 years, we had plenty of doctors,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, and now they've all gone away, but, and maybe that's because we don't do that program anymore.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, we have 2 doctors that don't even live here, one from Portland, one from Seattle.
That fly in.
And that's, you know, what good does it do us to just sit here? Because I remember when we paid for Tony Berg's, we incentivized him to come here, and he recruited 5 or 6 other doctors to come here. We didn't pay those people to come here. They came to work for Tony Berg, and so all of a sudden, then we stopped that program, we don't do it anymore, and now we don't have any homegrown doctors, if you will.
We've done that with dentists.
Yep, we did it with dentists, yep, but,
So
We
I
have been
mean, the one
looking
thing,
also at the Build Dakota Scholarship through the state.
we're eligible. Somebody
Yes, we
said that,
are.
right?
When I
Yeah,
went to Gregory Recruiting, I did put down, I wanted some information on that. It's something we would look into and try to recruit that way.
As a community, those efforts were done through the Chamber and Economic Development. As a municipality, we've talked about the enterprises. They are different profit centers. You have your electrical, water, sewer, corrections is now a big one. We fought hard to make it an enterprise. I think that applies where, I think as a municipality, I'm asking you to explore different ideas. You guys have to bring the ideas to these guys and the information. This plan, option 1, it addresses the twofold problem, the 2 problems that the recruitment effort has been outstanding. I'm going to applaud you guys on that. Applaud. You deserve a pat on the back, you and your team, for doing that. But the minute we rest on our laurels, as Councilman Schramm has indicated we've done in the past, we find ourselves depleted again. So we still have to identify the problem. And I think you have.
and going back to what you just said, is the main reason we're still bringing this to you, is because thankfully, it appears, again, waiting on background checks, that we've turned a corner, but we don't ever want to be where we were. That's why we're trying to learn lessons now, so that we are not going to repeat history. Everybody's favorite saying is you better learn from history or you're doomed to repeat it. Well, we want to take action. We don't just want to make a bumper sticker with fun words on it. We would like to take action, and we need your help in order to do that, so that we are more competitive in the industry and in the marketplace. You have brought it up, like this bass pond, numerous times within the city of Winter.
It dries up.
It does. And so what this allows is for our recruitment efforts to expand, not just within the state of South Dakota, but as we know, society right now, we can be competitive outside the state as well, to bring people into our community, the right people.
There are 2 things that I had several things written down when I was elected 5 years ago. Chandra and Mr. Jensen have heard these. I believe some of you others may have also, but I struggle when we talk about the youth are our future. And I'm not saying these all have to be young hires, but I said for the most part, we say it, but it's lip service. We don't actually act on it. And that's why I look at this recruitment program going out, and maybe we're investing in somebody we've identified early to make their college or their secondary education training a little more comfortable. It's paid for, they can study, they can focus because we've identified them. That's not lip service, that's us as a community addressing our future leaders. That's what I think this program would do.
I agree with that, and I think that's a discussion for the next
Yes,
round of budgeting.
I agree with you,
And I
Councilman.
100% agree with you on that, Jody. Here's a concern with what we're about to do. So, and don't take anything I say serious, or personal, okay?
Right.
So we budget for 50 employees and we only hire 46. So then, mid-year, we take those 4 that we didn't fulfill our budget with, and we give everybody in the department a raise. That is a situation that I don't know we want to go down that hill. Because then, next thing you know, streets is going to budget for 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay, and then some other department budgets for a few more. Well, middle of the year, they come in and they say, we're not gonna get these guys hired, we're gonna have this much money available in your budget that you already approved for us. So we wanna give everybody that did work here a raise. Caustic isn't the right word, but that's the only word I have in my mind. That could be a caustic event for everything in the future. Well, and no personals here, okay? But the superintendent or the person that helps build the budget, I know how I can get all these guys a raise. Now, that's, I think, a concern. So what I would like to see us do, and only because we have to talk this out, are all these people that are new hires, are any of them from Winter?
Yes, they are.
6?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Are all of them from Winter?
No.
Okay. So whatever you're doing, at the rate that we were at, this month worked. But only this month, okay? I mean, to get 8 new hires, that's darn good work at the rate of pay that you probably told them they were gonna get, or did you tell them you're gonna get $21?
At rate.
We don't talk in hypotheticals because that is, we only speak in fact.
So I'm wondering, does this need to wait till the next budget cycle if we're going to affect everybody on the payroll? Or if we're just going to address the issue of we're not paying enough to get people to come to Winter or to get people in Winter to come to a job? I am more inclined to, let's raise the starting pay and let everybody else wait 6 more months until the new budget year starts, and we budget accordingly, and, for lack of a better word, honestly. And that's not a good word to use.
I would like first
Yep.
discussion, and I'm not rebutting, all I'm doing in this conversation.
And honesty isn't the right word. Okay.
I understand that. But 2 parts to kind of come back and explain the budget process that led us to 35.5 in corrections was a vision by the committee and council at that time to develop possibly an affordable Southwest pod, a new pod. So when we were looking a year and a half ago and put this budget together to take on a new pod, and it was part of the exercise, and they went through the exercise, we had to add 2 new positions in there. Because of the cost of rising materials and lack of supplies, we did not move forward with the development of the Southwest pod that is still there, the plans are there, but we did not go forward. But it was appropriated in case the council chose to move. We stalled that process of expanding again. I'm glad we did, because had we expanded, can you imagine now 190, Jeff and Lori are shaking their heads, 190 people in there not being able to handle those numbers. Number two, so it wasn't an honesty thing, because we actually went through and were planning properly for an expansion that we correctly chose not to do. So therefore, we had appropriated the funds. They are there. And it's within our budget. It works with our revenues. It just so happened, we may have been fortuitous. And because we can't build that pod, we have an opportunity to identify a problem, which is our starting wage rate, 12th in the state with the third largest population. Very a fortuitous break. The last thing I will point out is and they being Public Safety Commissioner and Jail Administrator were out in Deadwood when this problem started, and the assistant and I started going through, and we weren't even talking numbers. The second part of this equation is, for the first time ever, I think Jeff, when him and I could get alone, sorry, Justin and Laurie, we looked at what is the ideal number of people that you need to staff every shift. And that's how this exercise started. So we looked at the morning shift, the afternoon shift, and the overnight shift. Jeff identified his ideal number, and then we built back from there. And we were at 33 and a half, I believe, which was just short of the 35 and a half, 2 people. And those 2 people were budgeted for the new pod. So how they budget is in line. We don't have that pod. We looked at the ideal numbers. It came back two people because we didn't build. 33 and a half is still what we needed. So we looked at what was appropriated and what the revenues would hold as far as personal services. And then we started building this thing backwards. That's where I'm going to stop. And I believe there was another point that was going to come up possibly from.
We've been short for over a year, so this isn't something that we've just started dealing with. When you asked about would everyone go short and try to get raises for this isn't even, we wouldn't have even come to you with this proposal had we been full staffed or even close to full staff. You know, we came with this because this is an emergent circumstance where we're short. And I mean, when we look at those numbers, those are significant shortages in our department. Back to how we ended up with 35.5. At that year during budget season, they took away 1 part-time and 1 full-time and 3 part-time to give us that extra person. So we did lose to obtain our budget. We lost 1 full-time and 3 part-time. Yep, and that was approved in council. That's how we maintained our budget that year. And, you know, when it gets to be a year going into this, you know, this study actually started with our wage study over a year ago, seeing where we were at. And that's where it came from. It wasn't something that we just decided to do now. It was addressed a year ago and now this year, and it's the same problems we see.
I am one councilman. I'm tickled pink. I looked and the stars lined up for us this week. I look at this group of hires. I mean, crying out loud, it's awesome. But the city going forward, we can't rely on the stars happen to line up. We can't put all of our eggs in that basket, that hope that we could keep doing this. You guys identified the problem. I agree that it is a big problem, the incoming wage thing. And I'm tickled pink that we have these. I mean, I'm overjoyed that we making these offers, that people are, I'm happy, but it still doesn't take away, in my view, the need to enhance the bottom.
It just gives us a recruitment tool. If
Oh,
we,
a
you know,
big
when we-
recruitment tool.
Yep, a huge one that we
Because,
can use
yeah,
in the
I've-
future and.
I've said it before, these kids, they're 19, 20 years old. They go to VOTEC, they get a corrections degree around the state. We're sitting there. We're offering them 19 something an hour. Peer is there, they're offering them what, $21, $22 an hour?
No,
You got
Pierce,
other-
$22.90.
$22.90 an hour. These kids, and then everybody, you know, I've heard councilmen make the point that, you know, the cost of living, you know, Ronnie Sprinkle, the cost of living in winter. I said, Ron, these kids don't look at the cost of living. They do not compute that. They're gonna look at the incoming and they're gonna choose the higher salary every time we're gonna lose out. That's where we're at here. And that's why, for me, I think we need to move forward on it. Of course, you guys all know that, but that's where I'm at. I mean, it did take me by surprise that night that we showed up here and it showed $1.50 an hour for up the ladder, that kind of thing. Whoa, wait, put the brakes on, wait, slow down here. That's not what we talked about. But I think that option number one, for me, it looks like it addresses some concerns, even though the stars lined up this month or this week. There you go.
The most important thing that's happening today is you are two councilmen on this committee, and you can't make a final decision. But at least this discussion, you're bringing forward questions, discussions that the rest of the council and the public can hear so that we can actually have this as a group on.
And my questions aren't even necessarily mine.
Right.
Okay,
I
I mean,
understand.
I was all for giving everybody in the chain a raise, but then when it was pointed out to me how we got this extra money and what that could lead to if we exercise that, okay, now every department can over-anticipate what we need for help. And then when we don't need that help, okay, then I have money available to enhance my positions.
Do you think that was answered, Brad? Do you think the question asked?
I don't know that
was answered?
option one answers it.
Okay.
The reason everyone was addressed there, Brad, is so our new people aren't making more than our 5 years and more. So
Agreed.
I had to go with a years of service, position, and where they were at in the leadership model. It's tough when the one that I came up with originally, which you guys kind of asked for me to work on, our corporals were making less in a
Than your
leadership
starting
position than
wage.
our
Yep.
starting wages.
And that's what I was looking at too, that, and I don't know that, my memory is not always really good, but before we had the corporals and the sergeants and the lieutenants, those people all got paid based on longevity, but they were all, for lack of a better word, floor workers, just like the brand newest employee. But they probably had a few extra duties because of their experience. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's.
So when we went to the ranking system, it was only natural that some people needed to get a raise to go with their rank. Is that fair to say?
Their job description changed, their responsibilities changed.
Okay,
yes.
took on a few more
right.
responsibilities than just being a floor worker.
That's right.
Okay. I have no problem whatsoever with having $21.40 as the starting wage and moving the corporals up to a level and maybe where you have them there at $1.25 to keep them above the starting wage people. But I think everything else ought to wait till budget season.
My concern is I don't want to lose experience.
I understand. Oh, I understand
Okay,
completely.
And you have someone that has 14 years in and someone who has 6 months in, you know, making just a few cents less. Yeah, that's tough to swallow. And what a better thing than to, you know, have your experience and step down and not have any responsibilities when we need that experience.
We've seen examples of that, Councilman Hockett.
Brad, your major concern, you control that. It puts the onus back on me and you and the rest of the council.
Yep.
If we have department heads marching in here willy-nilly saying, oh golly, guys, I need 2 more staff going forward because we can't get the work done. The onus is on us to look at that and to keep up and realize, we can say, no, you're not gonna enhance. We don't think you need, we've turned down, just in the last year, we've turned down some requests for added personnel. The onus is on us, Brad. Your concern, I know exactly what you're saying, because these department heads, it's a good insider deal to get raises for your staff. What you're saying is fine.
Yep.
But the onus is on us. We can control that. We have the final word on that. To me, it's not an issue because, if they're gonna add staff, they gotta justify it to
But,
me.
and Joe, and in answer to that, you know as well as I do, that if Lori says she needs 38 people, how am I gonna question that? She needs 38 people. My concern is that then we end up only with 36, so we got 2 people that we can give to everybody else as a raise. That's what I don't wanna have happen. That's why,
Let me just interject this.
yeah,
Greg.
go right ahead, 'cause-
I think this is just an important reminder. When Jody and Jeff went through their process that they just described to the folks here, it really shows that that was not something that was, here's a target, let's figure out how to get here. They came at it from the standpoint of, let's figure out what do we need to operate this facility on 3 shifts around the clock. And Jeff, using his years of experience, but more importantly, all of the data that he's got in front of him,
Yep.
he and the mayor spent some time and worked through this and came at it from that way.
And they came up-
And they came with that number. Now, if they came at it from the standpoint of, let's figure out how we can snowball the council, you wouldn't have seen them going through it.
That's malfeasance and misfeasance.
I am not, yeah. But my concern is that number was based on, we're gonna have 190 instead of 160 customers. The number of employees that Jody and Jeff came up with, okay? So if we're not gonna have 190 customers, I'm saying then that money should not be spent. It's just like the unspent COVID money that hasn't been distributed ought to go back to the general fund because nobody has COVID anymore. But anyway, that's what I'm saying, is that we made plans to do this, we didn't do this, and those plans included 2 additional or 3 or whatever employees. So let's take that money and give it to the existing employees. That's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see that happen.
But we're neglecting one really important part of the process. This was, at that point in time, it was looking for a solution to the problem of lack of people because we're not paying enough. So that's finding the money within that program that they had outlined to come back and say, okay, we've got this money that we were looking at going with an expansion. We're not going to go with the expansion, but we've got the money.
Yep.
How do we solve our problem when we need to be focused on those starting wages and bringing those up? And that's where that came from.
The 190 number, I don't want to look at the 190 number, I want to look at the pod, and that, those 2 extra people, when we identified the ideal number of people for each shift, to handle the spacing of where that pod would be, and an additional pod, the number 30 more, in talking to different corrections departments, talking with Councilman Hockett, we're unique because we have pods, and it's easier for us to maintain the numbers we do because of the way we're designed compared to other facilities that have direct supervision. So the exercise at that time indicated to do the job, the ideal number was 35 and a half. COVID took care of that in material cost, and now we're just working it backwards again with what we have. I'm telling you, we caught a break not expanding as quickly as I'm seeing the eye rolls again in the red face, but the revenues from corrections, remember this, they come from our customers. And Tripp County is a small fraction, very small fraction of the revenues generated from corrections. Those revenues handle this solution to our immediate problem without affecting Tripp County residents. The only effect is a positive effect for the city of Winter to move forward with this.
I can see what
My-
Brad's saying, in terms of department heads making that their standard or
Yes.
attempting to do so. In an emergent circumstance, if it's classified as so, that would be the exception. And like Joe said, we're accountable to you guys, you make the decision. But being short the number that we have been for the year is not conducive to our customer base. We're not even fully able to provide the services in the same manner to our customer base because of the shortages. And not in a drastic sense, but there are instances where, hey, sorry, I can't meet you up on the interstate. I got nobody to send because we have to take care of the brick and mortar first. So that I can understand your concern where department heads, well, I'm gonna hide one in here and then propose that down the road. Would there situations be emergent in terms of the
I understand that,
160
and-
inmates in the brick and mortar that we have to have staff for? The litigation is the risk, you know, if we're short-staffed and something
And the safety.
happens. And the safety to our staff, and yeah.
Governments have to be resilient. Governments respond to situations. Governments respond to emergencies that raise their head. For crying out loud, on the council, there's things that come up all the time. Governments, that's what we do. I have a hard time buying the concept that a couple of years ago when we were talking about adding a pod, we're tying that all together to an issue, to a bona fide need that we have today of enhancing and tying that all in as some big collusion of you people, you managers putting this all together at some point back 2 years to bring it out now to get a raise. That's not happening. Governments have to be responsive, they have to be resilient to the people. And that's the way I view this whole thing. We didn't go forward with the pod, thank God. I'm glad we couldn't handle it. I was over there, that place is so jammed up. There's stuff stacked in the aisles and everything else. We got to address that issue in the near future. But, it just, moving forward, we have to be resilient. We have to be able, and I hear your concerns about managers doing that, but I don't see our managers in the city of Winter do that because we have control over that.
And
We have
inclusion
the
is too
final
hard a
say.
word.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe.
but thank
Yeah,
you for
okay.
that.
Yeah.
But I want to
It
ask
probably
this
is.
question,
It
okay?
probably is.
So basically, I'm maintaining that if we want to have 2140 as our starting wage, fine. But I think we should only deal with the people that are currently there, currently making less than 2140. Okay, take care of them. Because my question would be, how many of those people making $25 when we're 10 people short are working more than 40 hours a week?
They are all.
And what would they say if you said, now we're full staffed, you're not going to get any more, or you're not going to have to work any more overtime? Would they do that in lieu of a 50-cent raise? Darn right they would. Because it's a benefit to them for us to be full staffed. And if somebody comes up the ladder for this calendar year and they don't, I don't think that's, I have a hard time believing that's going to be an issue. I'm going to leave because somebody else got $1.50 raise or whatever that difference is between starting and 2140. Our issue is to get people employed.
I like your discussion, but one of the other things that we talked about was the integrity of the rate increase for more responsibility. Are you saying address the corporals also with a rate increase so that 2140 corporals currently are at
2082,
No.
2031.
2031.
Well,
so-
one is 2082, but.
Been there longer.
Yeah, that's longevity.
And I understand that, and that's, but all I'm saying is you're looking at a 6-month time frame here, because in January, guess what happens? Everybody gets evaluated for a raise.
Right.
And this year during the budget cycle, you people get to guess who's still gonna be here and who's gonna qualify and what kind of a raise do we think they're gonna get. That's where you come up with how to address the gap between the newest employees and the employees that are still here.
But now you would have corporals that are making less than new hires.
No, I
If
said
you-
raise
You're
them.
addressing the corporals too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said, you gotta raise the corporals, they gotta make more
You're not
money.
addressing the sergeants or the lieutenants in your discussion?
Because they're already making more than 2140,
Till 2020.
Till 2020.
unless I missed one. I put my,
Your proposal is corporal and line officers.
yep,
This, he took one, but this isn't current.
All right, so we have a discussion, and we have
and
some...
that's all I'm doing, is making a discussion.
But I just wanted to hear recommendations, and you're
If our
looking...
issue is we can't recruit people, which, sorry to say, you just blew your issue. For now.
Ours lined up. What you
I
said.
am so glad, yeah, like you
And
say.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this issue has been ongoing for a year.
Agreed,
And so we had a good month. You're
Yes.
100%.
absolutely.
my-
And this
that's
goes
my
back
point.
to, we don't just want to talk about this problem and then be like, whew, boy, we got lucky.
Yeah, we dodged a
No,
bullet here.
We want to take action so that we are not ever here again. And this, yeah, we get it, we don't have a crystal ball, but it helps us to go recruit from cast a much wider net in
So-
recruitment. While
So
still
have you done a s-
tackling
Okay.
both of the problems that were identified. Make sure we retain, and make sure we retain experience while being competitive, while getting new employees.
I think
Because it
not
is a
making me
twofold
work
thing.
55 hours is gonna be as good a retention as giving me 50 cents extra. Because I can work all the time, when will I spend it? You know, that's,
In terms of overtime, those employees that maybe be concerned with that 50 cents, they're gonna make it back. Because again, overtime won't go away, but it'll be
Yeah.
drastically reduced.
and
The
won't that
schedule
make
now
it
has
for a
made it
better
to-
quality of life for those people that have to fill in?
Can't argue that.
For those that we don't have?
Correct.
That's what I wonder, because if it's our starting wage, because my next question to you guys was, have you done a study on the overall wages with us at number 3 compared to the ones above us? Are there, and maybe an average wage isn't the right way to do it, but I don't know, because you have so many that are lower paid and so few that are higher paid. Where do we stand in the overall thing? Like, is our assistant guy, are you in line with other assistants in the state, or are you $8,000
I
behind?
have no idea.
No idea. But we need to look at that, you know? But I'm just afraid of, in the middle of the budget cycle, trying to find how we can do this, you know? Because it will. I need 8 people in the street department.
But I understand that concern.
Don't want that to be a problem.
I also appreciate the discussion from, as council, you have to deal with the issues as they arise. And
Yep.
for,
And taking care of the lowest end, I think, is what we need to do here.
we brought up the term malfeasance. For an officer of the city of Winter, an appointed officer or a hired supervisor to make that decision and try to do that to council, I would deal with that justly and swiftly.
I understand that.
And Brad, Councilman, I believe in the past, we may unknowingly have had that come to us. I was part of, we used to hear the term slush funds built into budgets. And that was just prior to me becoming mayor. We heard the term a lot.
Yep.
And we have eliminated, I think for the most part, when I look at the budgets you guys have approved and appropriated and what's been presented to you, I think we've dealt with that issue swiftly. And just because the word no, council learned the word no, and we started asking the right questions, and supervisors have, I think this goes back to the culture we're putting in place of supervisors, when they're hired, they own their department. They now know. I had a great conversation sitting in the Armory with a former military officer who commanded over 2,000 troops, and he's like, and I was being challenged on a lot of the decisions I made, and I said, well, you're in the field, you made decisions. What did your decisions affect? Well, it affected 2,000 people every time I made a decision. I said, every time I bring something to council, from the appointeds or the supervisors, that decision affects 3,000 lives. I take it as seriously as you do. And I think council does too. In the new culture, the supervisors who own their departments now understand that too. Just my closing thought.
So Jeff and Lori, based on the fact that if we can get full staff by raising our starting wage, do you think that'll make things overall better in the jail? A better place to work?
If the retention's there, 3 months, 6 months, and we're not back in a similar predicament?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hiring
On a
and
number of
retraining.
areas.
Oh, yeah, because you spend so much empty money on training. And I don't mean that to be, I don't have all the right words, but once you get them trained, everything you give them is what it's worth.
Yep.
Till you get them trained, what you're paying them is not getting you a damn thing, in that time frame. But once they're trained and stay, you got them. But you got to keep adding to the training. So I once was told that the hospitality industry, we hire the uneducated, the untrained, and the unskilled, and we keep them that way. What a terrible statement. And that is the case in the hospitality industry,
Wow.
when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Because just like I said, in the hospitality industry, they didn't believe that teaching you to be a better worker was good for your hotel. Dumbest thing in the world. Hire them for as cheap as we can get them, and don't teach them how to do anything any better to improve themselves. And we keep them that way. And a guy that worked for McDonald's Hamburgers was the one that taught me that. And he came to the hospitality
So
industry
now
and
the
said,
decision has to be made.
Count,
What do we do?
I am going to place this on the agenda for June 5th again.
at what level? At this whole level?
Your recommendation coming in right now, I will put this whole level in, but we've heard a discussion that you would like to address the line officers and the corporals. And then we would address everything else in the new budget.
But let's decide where are we going to put the corporals? If we're 2256 with the people right above them,
That's sergeant, yep.
I understand that. And if we're 2140 with the people below them,
That $1.25 raise puts that starting position at 2156. 26 cents more than the line officer, yet $1 less.
Would you
Which
guys
we've
explain the
always,
positions of
yeah,
the
so
roles?
the essence of the corporal position, when we wrote that job description, it's just pure for development. It's for a line officer who someday wants more responsibility. The separation from a corporal and a line officer, there is separation. It's not just it's not just a title, but in full development in terms of responsibilities for the institution, they do not have the same responsibilities as a sergeant.
right now
So
it's
the-
about $1.50, right?
Yeah, so the discrepancy between the line and the corporal I don't think has to be huge, because again, it's for pure development. It's to see those that have shown as a line officer, they want more responsibility, they have the skills to develop to become a leader. You know, they are at times put in positions where they have to run a shift, especially when we've been short. But that position, a corporal in itself, it's for development, to retain and
You're
get more
identifying
experience.
future lieutenants and
Correct,
sergeants.
correct. So the separation between the line and it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, it was never,
50
it was,
cents?
that's right, it was
50
never,
cents a dollar,
the
is that what
intention
you're
was to
talking
never
about?
have it be, because, I mean, if you think about experience, the corporals right now have 2 years, 3 years, and 8 months. So when you're thinking of an institution in terms of experience, the current corporals, that's how much experience they have.
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years.
You've got
8
line
months.
officers with more experience than,
That's exactly right.
you have several with
Several.
more experience than your corporals.
Can you
But there's a
guys
reason
explain
why
the
they're still a
difference?
line officer, and I understand
That's
that.
right, yeah.
Yep.
Can you explain the
Yep.
difference between corporal and sergeant? Why there is a bigger gap between those two?
Yeah, the responsibility, so,
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah, they have to be trained to be able to run the institution in the absence of administration and lieutenants. They have to know both ends, the operations and the admin side of things, communicating with our customer base, line and
From
transports,
this line down, present
the
that
finance
to the council.
paperwork that we've introduced.
Give these people-
That's been a huge, that's a big
From this
sergeant
line down.
thing.
Give them the raise.
No, no, just changes.
It's all right, be
See,
truthful.
that's,
Hot mic, no, hot
I
mic.
sent that to the council, and these people get nothing except for more time off.
I have a financial question. As we were talking about the scholarship side of things,
It's not for discussion today.
we're not gonna talk about that.
No,
These people aren't gonna
this,
quit because they're
we're
gonna
gonna
get more
stick
time
right
off.
with this topic, and we can bring that up.
That's what I-
And I think that's more a policy, ordinance and policy, that if we're gonna talk about that, we start that in ordinance and policy committee in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, when it comes back around. But I like the idea of the discussion, I just don't want to interject it into this discussion.
I'm really sorry, because I was talking to Joe, we're trying to come to terms here. I didn't hear anything what you guys said.
We
I'm sorry.
were, Chandra posed the question, do we want to talk about the scholarship today? And I said, no. I want to bring that through ordinance and policy in 3 weeks. And
Or through budget.
well, yeah, but if, I think for us to do that, and we're going down this rabbit hole starting, I'll stop quick. We have to define in ordinance and policy, what is an emergent situation that constitutes the use of personnel services that haven't been used in budget process
So
through the
that
budget.
was ultimately my question,
Yeah.
is where do we go? Are we talking one department, are we talking 10
No,
departments?
city, this,
So that was where my question was.
Yeah,
So to
that's-
talk about it in there is perfectly fine.
yeah.
And it belongs in ordinance and policy to start putting it in a position where it's ready for the entire city.
Yeah.
So back to Councilman Schramm and Hockett, you were having your
Here's what
discussion.
Joe and I were talking about, that if you drew a line from the corporal, the first corporal on your list, straight south,
Yes.
that we'd like to have those presented to council, everything above that line not presented to council.
All right. That's what I'll place on the,
Hang
Option
on.
one also,
I'm sorry?
option one also included a years of service, kind of disparity as well.
sure.
Because again, it's not just position, because you alluded to it yourself, Brad, that some line officers have more experience. They've been there a lot longer.
Yep.
So so they're already like, they're way up here.
But if you're looking at this,
That's included
in
in
the
that
one
sheet
50
below
cent
there.
person, we still say should get 50 cents.
They're saying everything from
Take
corporal
everything that
down
you
that's
printed
been printed here.
From below sergeant down, and give them the raise that you recommended in option one.
Option one for this line below.
Yep.
Option
So are you
one.
talking position, or are you talking years of service and
No, we're
position?
talking-
Everything that was submitted here, Justin.
You listed a raise that you're gonna give to each of those people in the position that they're in.
From corporal down.
And I'm saying, the piece of paper you gave to us, if you presented this to the council with everything you suggested in the raise, as it is, except for everything above the line of corporal, no raise. None. Okay, leave that at 0, let that go to the next budget cycle, and my argument will be, I'm gonna get to have a day off. And that's gonna be worth the 50 cents that we wanted to give to those people to start with. And I don't think we'll have I can't imagine anybody quitting over that 50 cents that somebody that we're gonna hire to let me have a day off is gonna solve. And that's, I think, in the middle of this budget cycle, I think that answers the people that have talked to me about what I presented today, you know, answers that good.
So Joe, is that your recommendation too? So that we're
I
only
will
gonna give
agree,
one option
yep,
to
no,
council then?
if we can reach consensus on that, I'll back it up, because that's, in my view, where the problem is.
We are solving the problem if we implement this. We
Yeah.
might create another problem if the oldest guy
Well.
on the department quits, then I'll say, shit, that didn't work. But I really think that we need to have our starting pay be competitive with everybody else across the state. I'm hoping, and I have no idea, I just go by what you guys tell me, that this 2140 does that.
Puts us number 5.
Holy cow.
It still only gets us to number 5 in starting wage
Good.
in the
It's
state.
a-
But we have
It's a
another-
start. It's from 12 to
It's a good
5.
jump.
Yes,
We
We have
Councilman.
another
happy with
budget
that.
year starting in January.
That's right, we haven't, yeah, we got,
You know.
next year we can, but no, it would help things out, I think.
All right.
It's gotta be something that we can get past, else they don't get anything.
Yeah, we got nothing, I know
If
exactly.
we try to be number 2,
Oh, boy.
we wouldn't get that past the council, you know,
It would take a monumental leap to get that.
It would be,
really.
Yeah.
yeah.
Jeff
Well,
gives
because
me
you
the
guys
numbers.
keep saying about the cost of living in winter is so much less than other places. I'd like to see those figures,
Well, me too.
because I don't know that it is. $800 is what Mathis gets for rent out there on his
Let's
on his
not
place.
go into names
Oh,
of people.
But I also know of a couple that, I've talked to people that are just students that are renting apartments in Sioux Falls and in Rapid, $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
So when you talk cost of living, that's that's $8,000 more a year to live in an apartment that could buy you a house in winter. So those are some of the factors in Toccoa, cost of living adjustments.
But I would, that'd be interesting to see a cost of living analysis between Winter and Parker, or Sioux Falls, or,
Yeah.
Well, you and I both have family over in that part of the country. I'll bet you we can compare notes and come up with
well,
One of the
facts.
best committee meetings, I mean, this is full transparency, honesty, discussion, nothing personal. This is about.
I hope nobody takes anything
No,
personal.
no, I
Yeah.
don't feel that we went that way today,
But collusion is too tough a word, yeah.
but without a doubt, council is addressing issues. Go ahead, Lori.
Is someone gonna make this motion on Monday, or are we gonna sit around again on Monday night,
Well,
5th?
I think we have a motion in a
if Joe and I
second.
are in agreement, and you have to remember that some of the people that have talked to me have also expressed a concern that we need to take the committee people, you know, at their word.
Yeah.
Okay? We need to trust the committee people, which is why I speak the way I do, because I just look for honest opinions, and I know that they're opinions. Just like you, Jeff, I asked, will these older people quit if they don't get 50 cents? I don't think,
That wouldn't be the rational reason why. No, I don't believe that.
I agree, because they're gonna get more time off, and that's,
One of the other arguments I heard when it was tabled was we weren't transparent about, we'd done this work off camera. Every one of the other 4 councilmen can go take a look at the discussion and the questions posed by these committee members. They'll have a lot of their questions answered, and it may create more questions where this doesn't get tabled. We do need to talk about this publicly. And I would hope that it doesn't get tabled and.
well, I've
I
already
would very
expressed
much-
why I tabled it last time.
Yes, sir, I understand.
I would very much encourage all of us that are here today to encourage those other 4 members of council to watch this.
Well,
Because he's right, they're gonna get a lot of the answers.
We
Just
the,
watching.
the problem is, most of us councilmen don't read our stuff, so why the hell would I watch a
Unlike
video?
you, unlike you guys, it's easy to go watch a video.
Is it?
Oh, it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Do you?
I never know.
Yeah,
I know a couple others do, and
Okay.
it's very easy to go
very good, okay.
watch these.
Well, I will talk to the people that have expressed concerns with me
Good.
to tell them what our rationale was, and I think that's half the battle is why are we doing this? Okay? And so I'll take that responsibility on me because I don't like that stuff not get passed.
I'm okay if it doesn't pass. I just want I want the open discussion. And I think that's what,
Yes,
And have people
The-
go on record. If they're gonna vote no, then have them go on record.
Exactly.
exactly, and, the underhanded comment.
So to come back to
Very
Lori's
offensive.
point, though, I'm hoping between the two of you, one of you will come up with, okay, I'll make the motion. I mean, let's
Will the
be
council,
realistic.
but will the council be given this piece of paper showing,
yes,
You were given that last time too, and I'll read
and it was
to
too
you.
much, okay? Too much money. Okay. We had too many people getting raises for
So
some of
make
us.
a new one for you with the recommended of Corporal Stout.
I think you can take this document with a little bit of highlighting and call it option Brad and Joe,
Okay, I will,
really.
I
BJ?
will.
I don't know if you even need an option. This is what the committee recommends.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to be.
So
And if they don't agree with the committee,
Right.
then they vote no.
it's very easy actually to go in and just remove those raises from those top portions based off of the spreadsheet that I have. And I can actually send that out with the minutes if that's helpful. So they have it before the council meeting too.
That's
Very
what I
good.
like.
All right. All right, we're going to conclude the meeting. At this time, I thank everyone.